This is Understanding Interpersonal Communication from Chapter 7. I'm your instructor, Laura Schaefer. Understanding interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is defined as communication and interaction between two people. Anything that's more than two people is not interpersonal communication. If it's three or more, we call that group communication. And if it's about 12 or more, we call that public communication because there's a speaker and then an audience. And each one of those, interpersonal, group, and public speaking, each have their own communication dynamics and relational dynamics. Today, through Chapter 7 and Chapter 8, we're going to be looking specifically at interpersonal communication. So all of this is in the context of two people talking to each other in some form of a relationship and connection. Interpersonal communication has a few aspects to it. First, the general assumption is that interpersonal communication is face-to-face. Now, if it's not face-to-face, we call that mediated interpersonal communication. That means that there's something in the middle that communicates through us, for us. So that could mean things like email, text. It could also include direct messages. If someone slides into your DM, they move from either a group or public communication, like on social media. As they slide into your DMs, becomes interpersonal communication because now it's just you and that one other person talking. Collaboration apps like Slack, which is used by a lot of businesses, is also an interpersonal communication tool. It can also be group communication. One-on-one video chats, FaceTime, Skype, Google Duo, however you do it, is also considered a mediated interpersonal communication. Even letter writing is a form of mediated interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication really is thought of in the context of a relationship, which is an ongoing connection with one another, with another person. Now, you certainly can have interpersonal communication between people that you're just going to have a one-time interaction with. Someone at the convenience store, maybe it's a doctor that you have to go to one time, or someone that you just see once and then that's over. The relationship is just for the moment and that's it. But for the most part, most of our interpersonal communication, especially the depth of it, happens within the context of ongoing connections with people. Sometimes those connections are even lifetime. So one of the questions we have to ask with interpersonal communication is, what draws us to people? Like, how do we initiate a relationship? And that we have to look at it in terms of who we pick and then how we go about building that relationship. So the who and the why has a lot to do with attraction. Now, there are certain types of relationships that we don't have a lot of choice in. Our parents are actually one, a teacher, a boss to a lesser degree, or people that we really have a utility for. We have to have them in our lives. But then there's also something which is for most of the relationships, we choose them, and it has everything to do with attraction. Attraction can have really four main forms. The first one is physical, which is the physical self is attractive. And this is differentiated from what we call sexual attraction, which is a desire to have sexual relations in some form with another person. You can be physically attracted to someone without there being a sexual component to that. And we see that all the time with friendships, platonic relationships. The third one we see is similarity. We have something in common. We either like something the same or we dislike something the same. It can work both directions. And then the third one is what we call proximity. Proximity has to do with how physically close we are to someone. You're more likely to meet someone and be friends with someone in your hometown than you are from another city in the country. It has a lot to do with access, but we tend to be friends with, build relationships, people that are closer to us like that are in our class than people that are in a different class, even if it's of the same grade. So attraction works to sort of pique our interest in someone without even too much of an interaction. The next thing that we look at when it comes to initiating relationships is what we call uncertainty reduction theory. And it's a lot of words to basically say we are driven to know people more. So we have as humans a deep-seated need for certainty. We want to know if people like us. We want to know about people. We want to know about who are the people that are around us. And so we have a need for certainty. And then we have a drive to minimize uncertainty. If we're in an environment where we don't know a lot of people, we are like one of our first orders of business is always to find somebody that we can meet and get to know and sort of anchor us into the social situation. And to do these things, we utilize three basic strategies. And the first strategy is a passive strategy, which is observing others and the situation. We sit back, we watch, we kind of get a feel for what's going on in the room. Next, we use what's called an active approach. And that one is really, we get information from a third party. Maybe we ask a friend like, hey, who's that over there? What's their story? What do you know about them? We especially do this in dating situations. If we see somebody that we're attracted to, we want to find out if they maybe like us back before we approach them. But we even do this with people that aren't on a romantic level. We want to know, hey, who's that guy over there? What's he all about? Or especially like in the work environment, if you're networking, you want to know like who are the influencers? Who are the people that are going to help me achieve my goals? Who are the people that I might be able to help when you're in a work environment? So you kind of ask other people like, who should I go talk to? It's a very, very effective way to sort of scope out people, and so that your attempts of building a connection with people have a greater rate for success. And then the third strategy is what we call interactive. And interactive is directly communicating with the person who has the greatest chance of reducing our uncertainty, also known as talking directly to the person. Many people sort of do these in escalating forms. We start with passive, we walk into a room, we kind of observe like who are the people that seem to be most interested or that most people seem most attracted to. Then we find somebody that we already know and ask them, hey, what do you know about that person? Who should I go talk to? This is what I'm interested, whatever our case is. And then we move into, okay, how do I directly engage with that person? How do I say hi? How do I ask them a question? How do I introduce myself? And so that's the process. They don't have to work sequentially. You might just walk into a room and say, I'm just going to talk to the first person I see. Or you can do these in different actors. You might talk to somebody first and you're like, oh man, that didn't go well. Then you might step back and become passive, or you can go back and forth. They're fluid, and learning those things. So those are two really big key ideas around interpersonal communication. One is that we have a natural attraction to some people and not to others, and some people are attracted to us and other people aren't. And then the other side of that is that once we sort of identify some form of attraction, we go about this strategy of reducing our uncertainty to understand, does this person like me? Do I really like this person? It's kind of a two-way street. And if two people both have the chance to meet each other and they both decide that they like that other person, you have basically the beginning of a friendship or a relationship that you can begin to get to know each other.